Welcome, Helen, to Wellness Spring. It's so lovely to have you on the show.
It's just lovely to be here.
It's amazing how much we have in common, having spoken with you before. We're both women who have walked through deep personal transformation from surviving to thriving, and I so admire how you work, how your work is rooted not in theory but in lived experiences. You know, you go from your journey of recovery to sacred spaces and now hold that for others, including the beautiful Cacao ceremony that I attended. You bring such authenticity, presence and heart to everything you do. So I know today is not going to be an interview. This is going to be a heart-to-heart conversation from soul to soul. So on that note, could you please tell our listeners, how your journey began, a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, so they can get a feel for your essence?
Of course, and thank you so much for having me. And I agree with you, our paths are so almost aligned, weren't they, when we started talking? So yeah, well, I think like many people, especially, they call it the wounded healer, don't they? I had, quite a challenging childhood, and in some ways I was very blessed. I grew up with three grandparents and my parents. My dad was Australian, so I carry an Australian passport, which is very handy. And we lived just outside of London in England. And I was very close to my maternal grandma, but she was bedridden with arthritis. So I was one of her carers in a small way. I used to help her. She was one of the most stoic women. I mean, her joints used to creak, and when she stood up like a door, and you never heard her complain. I mean, she was an incredible woman. But sadly, all my grandparents were dead my granddad had Alzheimer's, and all of my grandparents were dead by the time I was 8. And I guess you'd say that's when things changed. Unfortunately, my father started sexually abusing me at that age. And I guess my go-to was my grandma, and she wasn't there anymore. So that was a real challenge. And my mum, I've done a lot of work around this. I work with forgiveness as a medicine because of this, and I feel very blessed to have that been my path, or one of my paths. But my mum, I guess in those days, it was just, she was so full of shame, I think. She told me afterwards when we talked about it that she suspected or kind of knew it was happening, but just didn't know what to do. And that was really hard to hear, I think, because you expect your mother to be there to, through thick and thin, really, and especially if my father wasn't very nice to her, but he was very ill, very angry man. So yeah, we were sort of treading on eggshells out my whole childhood. So yeah, it was quite a challenge, and I struggled at school because I'm ADHD and it was undiagnosed. So yeah, it was a challenging childhood. Let's leave it at that.
Oh my goodness. Well, as a registered psychiatric nurse, I've been first on call. My specialty was trauma and crisis teams, and I've been to many places like emergency rooms and different places, and the worst case is the clients have been comatose, and we find out then later down the track that they've been sexually abused either by a family member, or very common in universities, you befriend someone, you become so good close friends, and then they're sexually abused. I'm just curious, because your mother, and it's often the case, so a close friend of mine, she got sexually abused, and she said her mother didn't want it announced to bring even more shame to the family, but nothing happened with counselling or support or love. So I'm just wondering, because how did you deal with it?
Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? My mum actually paid for counselling. I knew that she knew, because when I was about 18, maybe 19, she said to me, I know your father wasn't very nice to you, but he didn't abuse you, did he? And it was like a rhetorical question. And I was wise enough at that point to know that she wasn't ready to hear it. In fact, I didn't actually talk to her about it until I was in my late 20s, after my father had passed. But I knew at that point when she asked that question that she kind of knew deep down. But she paid for some counselling for me, because at the time I was a student nurse. I didn't have money for counselling. And so I got sort of 12 sessions of counselling. And to be honest with you, I didn't really understand it, because was. I thought we were gonna talk together and she would help me figure stuff out, but actually it was just about me talking. And although eventually I got some benefit from it, I think I needed some different kind of therapy. But it's so interesting you say you're a psychiatric nurse, because actually it was one of my tutors at nursing college. I mean, I trained in the army. I can't remember if I mentioned that, but my dad had another heart attack, and she called me into the office to tell me, and I think she was worried about telling me. And I said, "Oh, is he dead?" and she said, "No, he's not dead." I said, "Oh." And she said, I think you need to read a couple of books. And she recommended 2 books to me, and they were a game changer because that started me on my spiritual path. The first one was Robin Norwood's Women Who Love Too Much. And the second one was How to Give Up Smoking the Easy Way by Alan Carr. I think that was more for my health. But that book was a game changer for me because it explained some of my behaviors. I kept going out with men that were not appropriate. And it really helped me. It started me on my recovery, and then from there I've been doing personal development since my early 20s, in various different forms.
Because I was also going to ask you, in your childhood you mentioned ADHD and also dyslexia, because I think in the era you were growing up, probably not much was known about it. So did you get bullied, for example?
Yeah, I was bullied at school for sure. In fact, one of my really dear friends sort of said to me later on, it used to really upset her how much I was bullied. But when I tried to go home with that, it wasn't really listened to. I think I was really shut down as a child. And in fact, recently I've had a big episode of grief, and all of the grief from my childhood that I couldn't express because I was shut down so much ended up coming out. So that was kind of a shock, but also a blessing. But sorry, I've gone off topic. What was the actual question? About being bullied and ADHD. Yes, of course. Sorry. My brother was diagnosed with dyslexia, and I was tested at school, and I fell 1 point short of extra time in exams. But I was still dyslexic, and the school, which was a private school, just didn't do anything. I mean, I look back now and I'm like, so this poor kid's 1 point off getting extra time in exams to help her, and she just misses it. And so then you think to do nothing at all. So she's got no help. It's like a worst case scenario. And my English teacher, literally through my English, we had O levels in those days, English O level, which you take at sort of 14. She threw it on my desk, and this was a private school, to remember. And my parents were paying for this education. She threw it on my desk and said, if I didn't have to enter you for this exam, I wouldn't bother. And my mum I know, it's shocking, isn't it? My mum sent me to a tutor, and I ended up getting a B. So there's A, B, and C is like passes. B's a really good pass rate. This teacher just gave me really helpful things, like things I couldn't spell, things like necessary. I mean, how many S's and how many C's, and what the hell order do you put them in? And he was so great. He said, you know what, Helen, you wear a coat first and you wear 2 socks. So in necessary, there's a C and 2 S's. Things like that would really help me, figure out how to spell things, because I was always spelling phonetically and not, how you're supposed to spell. And my ADHD, well, all my scorecards, if only she'd listen more, if only she would stop fidgeting, if only she'd pay attention, but no, nothing was done. And I wasn't diagnosed until about 3 or 4 years ago, for a completely different reason, actually. But yeah, and I didn't even realize until, about 3 or 4 years ago, reading Gabor Mate's Scattered Minds, my best friend.
Oh, yeah.
Told to read it, and she said to me, Helen, it's 70% me, but it's about 100% you. You've got to read this book. And that was when I realized, oh my God, I'm not crazy. Well, I am a bit crazy, to be fair, but I'm not completely crazy. And these things aren't things that I can't, my dad used to shout at me, why can't you just open your mouth before you engage why can't you engage your brain before you open your mouth? And I used to think, what does he mean by that? I don't really understand. And then when I was diagnosed with ADHD, it came back to haunt me, and I was like, oh, that's what he means. And if I'd known at the time, I'd have just said to him, because my brain doesn't engage before my mouth is open, Dad, so you just have to lump it. But,
yeah, and the other thing you mentioned was that you were your grandmother's carer. Like, did you have any other siblings, and where were your parents at the time?
Well, I wasn't her full-time carer in any way, but I did used to help out, and I used to do her bedpans, and we used to help make her bed. I mean, she was quite autonomous. She didn't need that was towards the end as well. Like when I first moved, that was when I was older, probably 7 or 8. And then, but when my parents went on holiday, I mean, my mum did quite a lot for her as well, obviously, but she used to be able to take herself off to the shower room. We had a shower room downstairs. But yeah, really, just used to do bedpans. But weirdly, that's kind of not how I ended up in nursing, because I hadn't really thought about nursing at that point, although there's a cute picture of me as a kid in a little nurse's outfit. But I remember when I went to get a job to save up the money to go to Australia, and I just knew I couldn't work in an office. I knew I couldn't do it. It was just too boring for me. And I saw a job in a job centre for a care assistant at a care home, and I just thought to myself, do you know what? I looked after grandma. I could look after someone else's grandma for 6 months to save up the money to go travelling. And it was that led me into nursing, because I had no idea what I wanted to do when I left school. Absolutely none whatsoever.
Yeah, I think back in our day, especially my day, a bit older than you, we didn't have that full-on advice with careers advisors and support and direction and so forth. And yeah,
it's interesting though, isn't it? Because do you know, the only thing I remember was when I was at boarding school. So at 16, I chose to go to boarding school. I just needed to get away from home and my father and my mother, really, to be honest, bless her. And so I went to boarding school, and we had one talk, which was from someone in the army, suggesting that we became army officers. And although I had no desire to be an army officer at that point, it stuck with me about the army, and that's how, kind of marrying up the two, I ended up doing nursing in the army, because I heard it was a really good training, and I was dual qualified, both army and NHS. And I don't know, just the thought of being able to get away again from home was quite appealing after. So it's interesting, isn't it, how some things land. But yeah, you're right, we didn't get much help with careers.
And it would have been quite traumatic anyway. Like, what did your parents do, for example, for a career?
Both of them were dentists.
Oh, okay.
I can't think of anything worse, to be honest with you, and I was definitely not going to follow in their footsteps. But yes, no, my both my parents. But my dad was medically retired quite young. He had a lot of ill health. He had a lot of heart attacks. He got mercury poisoning because of his job. A nurse spilled mercury and thought she'd cleared it all up and didn't want to tell anyone, didn't want to get into trouble. And it had seeped in the floorboards, and when the heating came on in the winter, it all came up as vapor, and my dad inhaled it. I mean, I think she died, I'm not sure, but my dad, was very sick for a long time. And so he was medically retired. I mean, he still continued to do some stuff, but he was medically retired relatively early, and then he was academic as well, so he went on and did teaching and stuff.
Yeah, well, I remember the mercury fillings, and a lot of people still have them. And when I was old enough and aware of the damaging effects, I had them removed. And it was such a big deal, because the dentists had to wear masks and really, kit out so that none of the mercury was going to overspill everywhere and so forth. So, I can imagine the damaging effects. And another question, because when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that, you openly mentioned that you had an alcohol issue for a couple of years, and now you've been sober for 10 years. Do you want to talk us through that and how that came about?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because after my nursing, I ended up working in continuing to use my nursing, but I ended up working in a corporate environment in an insurance company, and set up a rehabilitation unit for them, helping people who'd had accidents in cars, like catastrophic accidents or even some minor injuries, get the therapy they needed, because we have an NHS system in the UK, and although it's good for very acute stuff, it doesn't really do rehab very well unless you're very lucky. And but my first day at work, they took me to the pub. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're nurses, we'd have a good drink now and again, but it was kind of now and again. But this was like lunchtime, and they gave me a glass of wine, and they said to me, "What do you want to drink?" And I was like, I didn't really drink anything but wine, to be honest with you, but because I didn't like fizzy drinks, and I didn't know what to ask for, because I wouldn't normally go into a pub and not have a glass of wine. And so I said, well, I suppose I'll have a Coke. And they were like, don't you drink? And I said, well, yes. They're like, well, don't you want a glass of something? And I was like, oh, okay, I'll have a glass of wine. They bought me this great big glass of wine. I drank this glass of wine. I was really tiddly. And they bought me a second one. I had to pour most of it into the plant pot, because I thought, I'm never going to be able to get back to work. It was crazy. And it was a real drinking culture. But I was just a heavy drinker for, many years. We'd take clients out to work, to lunch, and we were expected to kind of keep up with them. And they often wanted a bottle of wine, and then they wanted another one. And of course, it was like, wining and dining in those days. It was sort of, it stopped now, really. It's not quite the same. But, and it was, and it was a kind of a badge of honor that you could keep up with the boys kind of thing and, do business.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And then I had quite a number of life events. I'd stopped working for the insurance company, and I'd set up my own business with venture capital backing. And unfortunately, we'd been put up in a fire sale because the venture company had changed their strategy, and we were just too small to fit into it. And we got offered 6 million, and I was over the moon because I had a share, and obviously a share in that business. I didn't have the lion's share, the investors had, because I'd borrowed a couple of £1 million. But we'd just got backing, actually, further backing to do acquisitions, and so it was a real disappointment. But they turned it down, and we went into this long, drawn-out sale process, and in the end, I bought the company for £1.
Wow.
I know. And I couldn't afford to pay for all the legal fees, so I had to bring in another investor, and he turned out to be Jekyll and Hyde. He just wanted his hands on my business, but he was telling me all the right things before he did the sale, and afterwards he just wanted to manage my job, and it became really, really difficult. And at the same time, I'd got married, and then my husband had just stopped working, and but we'd moved into this expensive flat that we were renting that he wanted to buy, and I only had I had savings from the flat I'd sold. And he just literally, we'd married, everything was joint, and he just burnt through £35,000. And so all these things were kind of colliding in my life. And in the end, I had to leave him very shortly after I got married. We were planning, I hadn't stopped drinking for 6 months to try and prepare my body to have a baby. I was, really excited. I was quite late getting married. I said, I don't want to rush into marriage. I want to wait till I find just the right person. And then completely married the wrong person, of course. I still wasn't that well healed, obviously. And so my drinking just sort of took off in that time, and I guess I went to more heavy drinking, and then I met my ex, actually, who we've just parted a few months ago, and I kind of went from the frying pan into the fire without really realizing it. And about 2 or 3 years into that relationship, when all this was sort of the business was happening, I just started drinking more and more, and my anxiety levels were rising so much that a drink was the only thing that would stop it. And in the end, for about, like you said, about a year or maybe 2 at the most, I was drinking alcoholically, and at the end, I was drinking 24/7. I was literally getting up in the night to top up. So I was never drunk, like a falling over, like you'd be at a party if you had too much to drink. I was literally a top-up drinker. So I was, just at this state to keep me going all through the day and night. And by the end of it, I was on my knees. I rang my best friend and said, I was praying that I would either die or have cancer, which is a terrible thing to admit, but I just wanted to be dead. And I had an insurance policy that would pay out like 400 grand if I had cancer, and it wasn't going to last 6 months. And I thought that would be great. I could drink myself into oblivion and be off the planet. I'm very grateful that didn't happen. And my best friend supported me to get into a rehab. And that's another amazing story, but I'll leave that for later. But yeah, it was the very, very dark times. It was a big, a very dark time in my life. Yeah.
Yeah, in the private hospital where I worked, we used to offer support, and they used to have AA classes there. And I know some people swear by it. They say, I'm glad I became an alcoholic because I'm really focused on my life now. I'm present, I'm alert, I'm aware, and I've never ever had so much support and so many friends and so forth. So I think that's good that you went to rehab and got that support.
Yeah, I say rehab was the best and the worst thing that happened to me. It was so challenging. Group therapy is painful, but like it was a 12-step rehab program, and I still am in AA, and one of the people say to me, Helen, you're so far away from a drink. Like I went to South America and said to my sponsor, my beautiful sponsor, Melissa, I said to her, I'm going to try a few AA meetings because everyone says you can go anywhere in the world, and I thought that would be quite fun. But I was so busy enjoying myself in South America and doing all this stuff, meeting all kinds of, indigenous peoples and just seeing the beautiful country. I did South, Central and North America. I completely forgot to go to an AA meeting. I'm so far away from a drink. I'm so very blessed. But for me, it's like if I stop going completely, who will be there for the newcomer? Like if everyone that got sober and didn't need AA left, then there wouldn't have been anyone there with a lot of sobriety in them to show me that this does work, and we have this saying in AA, it works if you work it, so work it, you're worth it. And I love that, because we are worth it, and it is a community. And some people see it as a cult, and some people are worry because it's got the God word in it, but it's about as far away from religion as you can get. And Eckhart Tolle says the power of now, and one of the sayings in AA is live in this just for today. And they say if you can't do it just for today, do it just for this minute. Take it right back to that. So there's a lot of spirituality in the rooms, and there's good and bad in every organization, isn't there? So but it definitely saved my bacon, and it is a real community, and people really support you. Even when I had a couple of relapses in my first year, there were people there who they just said, keep coming back, it doesn't matter. There was no I felt shame, but they never shamed me. It was like, well done for coming back, because you're really like, oh, I had a relapse, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed. But they never did that. They never shamed you for that. They just said, well done for coming back, keep coming back. It's been really powerful for me.
Yeah, when I was in the private hospital and young and naive, I was like, yes, someone has left and they're never going to drink again. And all the other staff were like giggling behind my back, because they called it a revolving door, because I was nearly in tears, a few months down the track when they returned. And it was like, oh no, I'm so heartbroken, because I was new and going to different meetings with them, because I had to learn about the systems with the psychologists, etc. But I can understand some of the things that you went through, and you're letting yourself down first and foremost, but you feel that you've let everybody else in your close proximity down and your support team. But we're human, and even though I like to say we're spiritual beings in this human body having a holiday, it's it's a bit of fun. And you mentioned earlier about Robin Norwood, the book Change Your Life. So can you explain that? Because I'm keen to know who or what really inspired you to go on your spiritual pathway.
Yeah, so it was a psychology book, really, about how childhood trauma can, show up in your life as an adult. And it talks about the people pleasing a lot, and how we put other people first, and how I think the biggest impact from that book was understanding that your mind keeps, as a child, you try and keep safe, so you do whatever you need to do in your family of origin, or wherever you're living if you're not in your family of origin, to keep yourself safe. And sometimes that means, betraying yourself, almost what we would call as an adult, betraying yourself, and trying to keep everyone else happy, because then you feel safe. And for a child, safety is the most important thing. It's sort of a really extreme example of that is what's that syndrome? I just had it on my where people who've been kidnapped, they start falling for Stockholm syndrome. They start befriending their kidnapper and end up sort of befriending them, because that will keep them safe. And from someone looking outside, it's like, how could you be nice to someone that's kidnapped you and is treating you badly? But for them, if they build a relationship, they can try and keep themselves safe. And that's what kids do. They do whatever they need to keep themselves safe. And this book talks about, she's about to release it again, actually, a new edition in I think this month, because I've decided to reread it again. It came up on my radar with someone, and I thought, I'm going to read that again, just because it was so long ago that I read it. But it was about keeping me safe. So when I went out with the bad boys and they treated me badly, that was normal for me. But when I went out with the nice boys who were being nice, that was alien to me, and felt really uncomfortable that someone was treating me with love and respect. And it dysregulated my body, so I avoided it. And so it was fascinating to read about how this childhood trauma can go on, and it doesn't, once you get out of the trauma, it doesn't stop there. And that's how I ended up knowing that I needed to work on myself, because once you become an adult, it's your responsibility to heal yourself.
Yeah, and what healing modality did you opt for first?
Well, I guess doing learning the therapies, things like aromatherapy, reflexology, you start healing the body, but also you end up sometimes having healing crisis, when, a lot of emotion can come out, you start healing stuff that you're not aware of. I've done so many things. I did Reiki. I trained as a Reiki practitioner. I did Reiki 1 and 2. And then I went on and did shamanic work. And again, most of the shamanic training we do is part of it is learning the techniques, but probably 60% is personal development. It's the healing that goes with it. I did more therapy. I mean, I've done therapy. Lately, I suppose, I have done internal family systems, IFS, Dick Schwartz's new model, and I found that probably one of the most powerful healing systems. But I've also really recently done compassionate inquiry. Gabor Mate's and compassionate inquiry, a beautiful friend of mine, needed some case studies, and I put my hand up because I was just going through masses of grief. And I was joking with a lady. I don't know whether it might have been you, but on a podcast recently, and we said, it was a lovely lady called Paula Connell. She's a spiritual beekeeper. She calls the bees home, and we were talking about this journey of like peeling an onion, and I said to her, we just said it's more like a cabbage. I said, I feel like I've done however many layers there are in an onion. I've done that many at least, if not twice as much as that. So maybe it's more like a cabbage. And we were killing ourselves laughing because, there's no end to it. It's like a never ending onion or an enormous cabbage. But yeah, it's just layer after layer after layer. But, having, it's what when me and my best friend are going through really, we say, it's so painful, the healing I'm doing at the moment. But the joy in that is knowing the pain is actually, the challenge is becoming a blessing. There's a blessing in every burden. And I was like, it's really painful at the moment. I know I'm going through a big spiritual growth phase. So, it's a never ending thing. But yeah, I think and I've been to a lot of workshops. I did one of my first workshops was Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. That was that was my probably second book that I read. So, a lot of it was spiritual work as well, a lot of work on forgiveness. I held healing circles when I was in my 20s before they were even a thing. I mean, I look back now and I'm thinking, I just had a whole bunch of girls at my house and we'd do all these ceremonies and sit in circle and talk and share our, problems and stuff. And I did a big forgiveness ceremony. I mean, I read a lot of books. I think probably books were one of my biggest healer in the younger days before some of these more spiritual modalities came around. But yeah, lots of different things actually. Yeah, lots and lots.
Yeah. I think once you start on this journey, it's very addictive. And here in Australia, I had to do 100 continuing credit units every year so that I could register with the health insurance and people could claim money back from me. At those times you could claim money for Reiki, reflexology and all, crystal healing, all the things that you mentioned. And I also promoted a lot of amazing speakers, and they were pioneers of different types of work. And lots of my friends would say to me, oh my God, how can you do another workshop or a course? And I'm like, because I enjoy it, and it gives, it may resonate with me, it may not. And sometimes it doesn't resonate with you right now, but down the track it might. But when I had my healing centre, I was doing courses, and then I would teach my staff, the therapists that did massage and reflex and all the rest of it, whatever I learned. And it was just that lovely bonding. And I embody my teaching through, I embody my learning through teaching. So, yeah, it's really good. And
the workshops, you meet your tribe, don't you? You kind of meet like-minded people. And, back in the day, probably when we were both doing it, it was called alternative therapy in England. It wasn't called complementary therapy. It was called alternative, which tells you how kind of wacky they saw it. I mean, it really was, here in England, it was considered quite kind of woo-woo. Like aromatherapy and reflexology in those days were considered woo-woo. Yeah. So some of the other stuff you can imagine. But also, it was lovely to meet like-minded people because you didn't necessarily bump into them at work or anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, not for me anyway, in the army or, I'd left the army by then. But yeah.
Yeah. And like yourself, I loved Louise Hay, and I still read her books from time to time. And I loved her A to Z because I work intuitively, and I could tell, you know, what was wrong with the person before I even place my hands near them. And they walk in the room, because my mum was clairvoyant, Claire everything, so was I. And, you know, I put it on hold for a long time, but I found when I give Reiki sessions, I can allow my messages to come through loud and clear. And I just love Louise Hay's book. It was like confirmation, because for years I was telling my students, you know, oh, you're holding on to this in your shoulders, the weight of the world, or you're holding on the past with your arms and so forth. And then when I got Louise's book, it was like confirmation, you know, that I'm not wacky, that, someone else does it as well. And how did you get into the Cacao ceremonies?
So that's quite a funny story. When I just got sober, my best friend, Eleanor, said to me, Helen, let's go to this Psy Trance festival in Portugal. My son Alfie and his girlfriend are going. I don't want to play Gooseberry. Why don't we go together in your camper van? I think there's a few clues in there, you know, about why she wanted me to go. But I'd literally just got sober. I mean, I was sober. And actually, no, it was before I'd had my first relapse. But so I think I was like 5 months sober or anything. And I was like, do you think that's a good idea? She says, I think you'll be fine. You know, you've got this. And I said, yeah, I've got this. So off we trundle in my camper van across France into Portugal, go to this Psy Trance festival. They're all partying all night. I'm keeping away from like dangerous things. But there was this beautiful place called the Liminal Village. And the theme that year was shamanism. And I'd not heard of it I'd heard of shamans in the Amazon, but since, you know, my slip from grace with the alcohol, I'd kind of fallen off my slightly spiritual path. And it turns out they'd started calling all indigenous healers shamans, wherever they were from, whatever country. And so I had the benefit of sitting in this liminal village, listening to all these shamans from around the world talking about shamanic healing. And one of the ladies that spoke was a lady called Rebecca Shaman, and she was my cacao teacher. And she had this has this two incredible books, actually. One, she was an ayahuasca shaman. I'm cutting this very short because I've got to keep my answer short, and I can talk the hind legs off a donkey. But she basically was in Machu Picchu, was not happy with her job, gone out there to try and help the indigenous peoples, and ended up realizing that the people she was working for actually, like, you know, not abusing them, but do you know what I mean, not treating them very well. And she went out for a run to try and clear her head, fell off a mountain, had a vision, and this shaman appeared to her and said, you've got to come and find me. You're my last apprentice. And she sort of discounted it a bit, thinking, oh, I'm delirious. I've nearly killed myself falling off this mountain. She was out there all night. So she eventually in the morning, she got back down the mountain, hadn't died, was still alive. This tree had caught her. I mean, she should have theoretically, I suppose, be dead, if you like. And anyway, then, so she spent nearly 7 years training with him in the jungle. She found him, long story, buy her book, it's incredible. And then she went back a second time, and when she came back the second time, they told her that her medicine wasn't ayahuasca, it was cacao. And she emptied her clothes out and bought 40 kilos of cacao back. And this is years ago now. I mean, I trained with her about 8 or 9 years ago, probably. And she'd been doing it for a while before me. And so I ended up training, you know, I just felt really called to this beautiful, gentle medicine. And that really was incredible, really helped me through, you know, some dark times. And I mean, it's taken me a long time. I'm now teaching other people. I got to a point where I got this message that you're ready to teach others about a couple of years ago. And so, and I love it. I mean, I love cacao. I mean, I've ended up working with mushrooms as well, but cacao was my first real medicine, and I drink her every morning. I sing an ikro that I was gifted by spirit to sing to her, and I have a ceremony every morning with her, and I love it. I love her, and I love sharing the medicine.
That's beautiful. And you do many healing services. Which one is closest to your heart, and why do you think it creates such powerful shifts and purpose for people?
Oh, that's a hard question, but I am going to go with my mushroom retreats. There's a bit of a cheaty answer, I'll be honest, because there's a sweat lodge, a cacao ceremony, a mushroom ceremony, and integration, and And if you'd said to me 3 years ago, Helen, oh, you're going to work with psychedelic mushrooms, I'd have actually laughed. I'd just fallen off my chair laughing because I hadn't taken any. I was like a bit scared. I'd done ayahuasca, and it was ayahuasca that told me, you need to work with mushrooms. And I was like, oh, I kind of ignored it for a while. And then Mother Cacao told me as well, and I was like, well, then you better send me some people because I don't know anything about this medicine or what to do, and I'm completely, you'll have to send me. I don't know, it's not legal here, so I can't do anything. And literally, they just sent me people to go and work with the medicine and learn, and etc. And the feedback from people that come on those weekend retreats, and I think it's a cheaty answer because it incorporates so many of the things that I love. Like we do a sweat lodge on the Friday to cleanse and purify, or the first day, and a cacao ceremony to prepare people, and then the mushrooms, and the combination I feel is really powerful. But also I love my shamanic healing because people can get such profound results after such a even just such a short time. So I just feel blessed to be on this path because actually it's all the same because we're all just working with energy. It's just wrapped up in different kind of packages, I suppose, except for the medicines, because the medicines do the spirit does the work or the medicine does the work. We don't really have to do anything. We're just a conduit that delivers from spirit to the person.
That's a good way of putting it. And I read on your website that your purpose is to inspire others as you have been inspired, offering guidance, fostering spiritual connection, and supporting people on their healing journey. So what does that purpose look like for you in your day-to-day life now?
Well, I'm not quite sure how to answer that question, but what I've learned is, because I live off grid in a wood, and that wasn't the plan. I was in I was in a long-term relationship, and the woods was where I did my work. We run retreats, and it was a bit of a holiday getaway, sort of a weekend getaway. But when my relationship was not kind of working out, I spent more and more time down in the woods, and it became my best healer. And I now live here sort of off grid. As I said earlier, I have a generator when I'm doing podcasting, and that's one of my things. That's one of the things that I do to try and inspire others. My podcast, Thriving, Not Surviving. So I talk to people about, their journeys, and of course, we've recorded your amazing story, to try and give inspiration and hope to other people. But also, when people feel like they don't know where to turn, because I'm blessed with a lot of modalities. There's quite a lot to choose from for people, and sometimes things resonate and they try one thing and then they're like, oh, actually this shamanic thing that sounded really scary, I might just try that, but for me, I've been blessed with amazing teachers, but I've also been blessed with life's challenges, like the the sexual abuse, the alcoholism, and my uncle very sadly committed suicide. I can resonate with a lot of people, and like you said, from an authentic place, because I've been through it. And so, being able to kind of inspire others that remembering how down at the bottom I felt and wanted to give up on life, and knowing that, and then, kind of fast forward now, and I know I'm so full of joy, so full of gratitude. And, the woods have been my best healer. And it's not easy some days, and especially when it gets down really cold. And but nature, I love bringing people into the woods, because people I know people kind of go on walks, but spending a weekend or even a day in a woodland, walking around, seeing the deer and, sometimes other animals, it's such a beautiful healer. Like, we don't, nature does just heal us. And I've been immersed in the woods full time for like over a year now, and it really has healed me. And so my purpose, I guess, is to live in the now, to only do things that really bring me joy unless they're absolutely essential to life. Like Eckhart Tolle says, this beautiful thing: if you can't do it with enthusiasm, joy, or acceptance, you shouldn't be doing it at all. So if and I don't really like to use the should word, so it's best not to do it, but I try not to use the should word. I wrote a poem about the should word anyway. So if something has to be done, like something's really urgent, then I try and sit quietly and say, right, this has to be done. Let's do it with acceptance, not with begrudgingly, not anything. This has to be done. I've made the choice. I'm doing it because I chose to. So let's really try and do it with acceptance. And sometimes the joy and enthusiasm pop along at the time. But what I've learned is that if I only do things when I want to do them, the universe always provides me. So maybe I have to chop some wood and carry some water, and today I just don't feel like it. Instead of forcing myself to, unless I've run out of those things, I just don't do it. And then the next day I'll suddenly feel like it. And it's so beautiful. It's like, it feels like I'm in the flow, I suppose, of life. And if I stick to that and just do things when, I just say, right, I need to do this. And then the moment will present itself. And I find myself doing it with joy and enthusiasm rather than sort of forcing myself to do things. So I guess my purpose is to live in the flow and to, try and help others be inspired to do the same.
And you're certainly doing that. And as you know, I just recently bought land and we haven't had much time on the land. And people are going to me, won't you be scared on the land? And, I'm like, no, I feel so happy here. It's so quiet and peaceful. We're 3 k's off the main road and we're not on the flight path. And all you've got is nature and the animals, and we're adjusting cows, and it's just beautiful. And you're inspiring me because my main purpose is to grade the land, but also run retreats here. And the message I'm getting recently is like, forget waiting till you've built everything, just get people on the land now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny because people say that to me. Aren't you scared, Helen, in the dark and in the woods all by yourself? It never even crossed my mind. I had one moment when someone I had a beautiful set of deer skull with antlers that I was led to on the land that I found. Yeah. When I asked for a piece of antler, I said, now that stag is my power animal, do you think you could see your way clear, please, spirit, to just send me let me find a piece of antler? I was expecting a small piece of antler, and this complete head with these 2 great massive antlers. The deer had obviously died of natural causes because the whole body was there, but I was climbing over streams and rivers to get to it, following my intuition. I mean, I was glad I was on my own because someone like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know, I'm just following my intuition. Spirit's telling me to go straight ahead, left, right, up and down. And then and I said, in my head, I was like, oh my God, this better be good, because I was literally going through rivers, up things, holding onto trees to try and get down these banks. And there I literally fell to my knees when I saw it. It was beautiful. Anyway, someone stole it, and there's no right of way in my land. There's nothing. And for a day or two, I felt really unsettled because someone had come, trespassed onto my land. But, it was literally, I just had to tell myself, you're safe, you're protected. They obviously needed it more than you for whatever reason, and it's okay. But I don't even lock my door at night. I mean, I live in a shepherd's hut. I don't even lock my door at night. I mean, I don't even think about it. And I think, I just trust that spirit, will protect me in the lands, and I ask my guides to protect me every morning and before I go to bed. So, yeah, I never feel fear. I don't feel fear here ever, and just love for my beautiful land. Well, it's not my land, is it? I'm just the guardian of it. Can't really. I know in this country we say we can own land, but it's a bit of a crazy concept, isn't it? And it belongs to Mother Earth.
Exactly.
We do all kinds of crazy things, don't we, as humans? But yeah.
Yeah. And as a guardian of the land, how do you personally connect with Mother Earth?
Well, I mean, I connect. I mean, I walk the land every day to, depending what time of the year it is. In the winter, I try and get 2 walks in, just depends because it gets dark. So, it gets dark late and early, and depends what I've got on. But I always walk the land at least once a day. And I was gifted a beautiful song during a shamanic training. Actually, we did a specific journey to see what we personally could do to help heal Mother Earth. And I was gifted a song and told to sing it to the land wherever I was as often as I could. And I have a tiny drum that's literally about this size called Pequeña that a dear friend of mine gave me. I gave her some bees and I wasn't expecting anything. And in reciprocity, she gave me this drum that she'd made herself. I wish I had it on me, but it's a ceramic hoop with iron oxide leaves and stuff around the side, and it's stag skin. And I have it on a loop. I have it on a phone cord thing, but it's sort of, so I can carry it. It's perfect. I can carry it with me, and I've still got my hands free if I need them. And because I do a lot of litter picking, one of my things is to pick up litter wherever I go. I've always got a plastic bag or a dog poo bag in my pocket to pick up litter. But yeah, I sing the song to the land whenever I'm walking, quite often. And I also try and encourage people in my ceremonies, my cacao ceremonies. There's a little piece in there that talks about how maybe a little something that they could do. So just trying to pass on the medicine, because we do need to take care of her. And I grow staff, and just to really appreciate her as well, and give gratitude and thanks to her.
That's wonderful. And I think today we're living in a crazy world, and people don't even know where their food comes from. And I think if everybody could, even if it's in growing mint or basil or thyme on their windowsill, it is a start to know, and knowing, the work that farmers put in to grow food and keep us alive. It's not easy. Having been being a new farmer and planting lots of things, it's trial and error, and it's a lot of hard yakka and so forth. But it's all about putting love into the land and loving what you do, as you said with that quote with Eckhart Tolle so wonderfully. And as this is a health and wellness show, what is your must go to for holistic health that you do every day?
Well,
or most days?
I have a very strong morning practice, which is drinking my cacao, meditating. Meditating for me was a game changer, especially with my ADHD. And I tried my 20s, 30s and 40s, but I think because of my ADHD, I struggled to meditate. And then I found Deepak Chopra's Primordial Sound, and it was such a game changer. I ended up training as a meditation teacher under him because of that, because I just thought, God, all us ADHD people, we can meditate. This is fantastic. That's really powerful for my health. And the cacao, and I do a gratitude practice as well to remind me just every day how grateful I am. And I always try and do at least 3 sun salutations as a minimum, but I try and do yoga, depending on what time of day it is. It's harder in the woods sometimes. I mean, I do have I have one big space, my temple tent, where I run all my ceremonies, but obviously it's freezing in the winter. But I do try and, if I've got time, I do go and heat it up a little bit to do a bit of yoga when it's really, really cold. But it's easier in the summer. And actually, I used to do the 5 Tibetans, and I used to do it every day. And then when I went traveling, I ended up losing it. And it's a really good reminder to get back to that, because that was a beautiful practice to do. But probably walking and cycling in terms of fitness. And then just sort of eating minimally and well, and just really honoring my body, I think, just really taking care of it, drinking lots of water, and I just live a really simple life, I guess, here. So I guess that would be my go-tos. But yeah, gratitude's a big medicine for me, and forgiveness as well.
Yeah, those are 2 very powerful practices that I personally believe everyone should get into, even if it's starting your day with 3 things that you're grateful for, and even ending your day, because even if we're homeless, there's still always something to be grateful. And as you know, Helen, we lift our vibration. It's one of the highest vibrational things, gratitude, that because we are energy and everything is energy, and this just lifts you to a higher realm, and it's a good way of lifting your mood when you're feeling down. And forgiveness, with my Reiki students, and before that even, I've always said to people, forgive doesn't mean I agree with the person, the event, the situation. It means I am letting you go so I can move forward with my life. And when you do this, there's such a big weight off your shoulders.
I think that you're right, because one of the biggest things people say when because I do an online forgiveness course and as well as a weekend retreat here, but it's people say, well, if I forgive him, then I've let him off the hook or her off the hook, I've condoned their behavior, and we reframe that completely, because that's not what forgiveness is about. They say it's a really selfish act, because basically we're the ones that are still holding on to it, not other people. And I've found that I know when I've completely forgiven, because the person or the thoughts around it never enter my head. So I know, even if I've done a lot of forgiveness around something. I had an example of this a few years ago when rather unscrupulous business partner decided he wanted my 50% of the business and kind of went about taking it off me while I was on sabbatical. Long story, I'm not going to go into it, it's in my podcast, but I had forgiven them because I just felt that a lot of people said to me, Helen, this is just the universe saying you've got to do your healing full time. I said, I know, but that was my pension. Anyway, the universe will find me another pension. I'm not worried about it. But, it was a lot, because I built this guy's business up. He was a completely silent partner. I built his business up for 6 years. We were doing really well. And then, so I'd done the forgiveness, and I thought I'd forgiven them, but they were still popping into my head now and again. And on a retreat, we do a lot of hands-on practical exercises, and we do this one that's called putting yourself in the other person's shoes. So you switch roles. So my bestie was me and I was this man, and we asked the questions, why did you do this? Because I just couldn't understand it, like a couple of weeks before they'd entered me for this amazing award, and then he tried to turn everyone against me and used my ADHD to do that. And he did it. What came out was it was greed. He was afraid, even though he had plenty of money, he was afraid that he wouldn't have enough. And when that dropped, I was like, oh, this isn't personal. I'd still hold on to that little tiny bit that this was personal because it felt personal, but it wasn't personal. None of it's personal. No matter what someone does to you, it's never personal. It's always a reflection of them, not you. And I was able then, I was like, oh, that was the final piece that I had to just reconcile to be able to let go of it completely. And now, I'll talk about it now as something that happens, but I have no bodily reaction. I don't feel anything, and it doesn't come into my head unless it comes up for a particular purpose, and then I know I've done the full forgiveness. It's so powerful because it really does set us free. And unforgiveness has got so many detriments to the body, like it's putting yourself in fight or flight every time you think about it, and all those horrible chemicals, the adrenaline and all those other chemicals flying around your body. And the other person's probably not even thinking about you or what they did. Sometimes they don't even know what they've done. It was so blind that they did it that, it is a selfish but a beautiful act for ourselves to learn to forgive. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like that saying, you're drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Yeah. It's such a gift if you get triggered that, as you wonderfully put it, that it's a gift to look within and see what else you're holding on to, because we reflect everything. Yeah. And before we come to a close, is there anything that you feel you'd like to share? Because I'll put all your website and your podcast and your social media with the notes.
Lovely. There's just my quote. One of my favorite quotes was a Mark Twain quote about forgiveness. And it says, "Forgiveness is the fragrance the violet sheds on the heel that just crushed it."
Wow.
And I love that. I really love that.
I do love that. It's one of my favorites. So thank you for reminding me that. It's beautiful.
And one final quote. And it's a Deepak. I learnt it from Deepak, and I think it's from his mother actually. But may I be immune to criticism and flattery, above and beneath no one, fearless in any situation. I think I'll leave your listeners with that and hope it's helpful.
Thank you, and thank you so much for your heartfelt sharing and your wonderful words of wisdom. And I wish you good luck with the rest of your journey. So
thank you so much. I know our paths are going to cross at some point, hopefully in France, in Bonn.
Yes.
For the Magdalene retreat. Anyway, take care.
Thank you, Helen. Take care. Bye.
Bye.